You want to know how to establish a protagonist for your story? We're going to talk about how to do that effectively, right here on How to Write a Story Step by Step. Welcome to How to Write a Story Step by Step. My name is Michael Martin. I'm a writer and a coach for writers at Story Writer Academy. And in this episode, I'm going to explain how to establish your main character effectively. I'm going to tell you why establishing your character is hugely important, and I'm going to give you some useful techniques on how to apply it in your story. Establishing your character is incredibly important because when you settle into a really good story, you essentially become that character as you immerse yourself into their world. You see everything the character sees. You share every experience the character goes through. You essentially become them. Researchers conducted a study where they measured electrodermal activity while subjects were exposed to a scary story. The subjects experienced most fear when they knew something bad was about to happen to a character, but the character had no idea. In a similar experiment, subjects were shown scenes where a character experienced fear, joy, and pain. Brain scans and blood samples were taken. The results showed that there was an increase in chemicals and brain activity. The results were similar to the results when subjects were experiencing those feelings in real life. This means that through a story, without having to really experience the situation, we physically and chemically start experiencing it. When the story and the characters draw us in, we experience the events and emotions ourselves. So how can you apply this? Well, let's start with the simple things first. Remember the Snowflake Method? Start small. A character who is in a comfort zone. Dan Harmon, creator of Community and Rick and Morty, describes establishing a protagonist like this. Show a character. It could be a raccoon, a homeless man, or the president. When in doubt, follow their pity. Fade in on a raccoon being chased by a bear. We are the raccoon. Fade in on a room full of ambassadors. The president walks in and trips on the carpet. We are the president. When you feel sorry for someone, you're using the same part of your brain you use to identify with them. The easiest thing to do is fade in on a character that always does what the audience would do. He can be an assassin, he can be a raccoon, he could be a parasite living in the raccoon's liver, but have him do what the audience might do if they were in the same situation. In Die Hard, we fade in on John McClane, a passenger on an airplane who doesn't like to fly. J.K. Rowling spends all of Chapter 2 in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone covering this milestone. All of it. The entire chapter. We're shown Harry's miserable life with the Dursleys, and Rowling helps us connect with Harry even more by not allowing him to wallow in pity of his miserable life.
Bring my coffee, boy!
Yes, Uncle Vernon.
We know that the Dursleys are horrible people who are treating Harry wrong, but Harry doesn't complain. And because of that trait, we like him more, and we hate the Dursleys even more.
I'm warning you now, boy. Any funny business, any at all, and you won't have any meals for a week.
In Black Panther, we're immediately reminded of what happened to T'Challa's father in Captain America: Civil War, right before T'Challa rescues Nakia, a woman he cares for. And then we're introduced to Wakanda as T'Challa prepares for his coronation ceremony. We get scenes that show how close he is to his family.
Did he freeze? Like an antelope in headlights.
Are you finished?
And it helps us empathize with his character because it grounds us into something relatable. Among the larger-than-life superhero powers and technology and royalty. In Back to the Future, this milestone is when Marty McFly skateboards through town. He's the kind of kid who's late for school and plays in the band. In Jurassic Park, it's when Alan Grant scares the little kid with the raptor claw.
You are alive when they start to eat you.
And everything else before he's formally invited to go to the island.
What kind of park is this? It's right up your alley.
In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, it's the Shire. We're introduced to Frodo, Gandalf, Bilbo, Merry, Pippin, Sam, the whole gang. And Bilbo has this big party featuring the most important hobbit in all of Middle-earth's history, Proudfoot. You, dear writer, you need to get to know your characters intimately. It would help for you to know even more about your character than your audience will ever know. But you don't have to know everything up front. You don't need to know the entire backstory before you've even started writing. You can always build as you write and discover more about your character using the Snowflake method as you go along. And personally, I bounce between outlining and discovery writing. I usually start with a basic outline and then I'll just try to find my way through the story and discover things as I go along. And then when I get stuck and something isn't working, I go back to my outline. I continue to build and I jump back into discovery writing as needed. You'll have to find a rhythm that works for you. Some writers are more outliners, some writers are more pantsers, and some, like me, are in the middle. But here are some important questions you can ask yourself to help you get going. What is your opening image? Your opening image sets the mood, the tone, the type, and the scope of your project. Think of it as a before snapshot. What is your opening scene? Your protagonist must be introduced within the first 1 to 3 scenes. Show them living in or stuck in their identity, their comfort zone. You may also introduce or hint at every other character in your story and plant character tics to be addressed later on. What is your theme? Consider using a secondary character to pose a question or statement to your main character that is the theme of your story. What is your hook moment? Your hook moment is something that creates a question that the reader wants an answer to. It doesn't need context with your protagonist's needs or stakes. It's just something that's designed to build intrigue for your audience. Some other questions? What's your character's philosophy? What's your character's strength? What's your character's weakness? The answer to those questions will resurface later on in the story, and we'll get to that soon. But there are 2 really good books that I recommend you consult that will help you generate ideas for answering those questions. One is The Positive Trait Thesaurus, the other is The Negative Trait Thesaurus, both written by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. They didn't sponsor this, I don't know them personally, never did any kind of work with them. This is not an ad. Those are just really awesome books that have helped me a ton, and the reason I'm doing this series is to pay it forward and help you. So I want to share stuff like that with you because maybe it'll provide some value to you. So I'll be sharing a lot of stuff like that with you, and that is what you can expect for the rest of this series. In the next episode, we're going to dive deep into your character's needs, and it just might be the most important episode in this entire series. So make sure you don't miss that one. Thank you for watching this episode. My name is Michael Martin, and I'll see you on the next one.